I saw my daughter first, then my grandsons, then my brother sitting near the front pew beside the choir section. Not one of them waved at me when I entered the church hall. My daughter looked directly at me, then turned back toward her conversation like I was a stranger. I stood there, holding my old gray coat over my arm like a fool. The church in Dayton had always been loud before Sunday service. Folks hugging, kids running around, women passing trays of donuts and coffee. But that morning, everything felt cold around me. I saw my grandson Tyler whisper something to his younger brother. Both of them looked at me, then looked away fast. That hurt more than I can explain. I'm 74 years old. My knees ache when it rains. I spent 38 years fixing diesel engines at a trucking yard outside Dayton. I buried my wife, Nancy, 9 years ago. I helped raise those boys after their daddy left. I paid for braces, school clothes, Christmas mornings. I was never perfect, but I showed up. Now my own family acted embarrassed. I walked into church. I slowly made my way down the aisle. Nobody offered me a seat. My brother Earl kept talking to two men from the choir like I wasn't even there. Then my daughter Melissa finally leaned toward me without smiling. "Dad, maybe sit in the back today." I stared at her. "Why?" She looked nervous, angry too. "Just please do it." That's when I noticed people looking at me strange, real strange, some with pity, some with disgust. I felt my stomach tighten. "What's going on?" I asked quietly. Melissa folded her arms. "You know exactly what's going on." I honestly didn't. That was the truth. The organ started playing. Folks settled into the pews. I stood there feeling like every eye in that church was burning holes through me. Then Earl finally turned around. He looked me dead in the face and said, "You should have stayed home today, Frank." Those words hit me like a shovel to the chest. I stepped closer to him. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Don't start cussing in church," he muttered. I could feel people listening now. Melissa leaned toward me again. "Dad, please, don't make this worse." "Worse than what?" Nobody answered me, not one person. Then I saw Sister Louise near the piano. Sweet woman. Known her 30 years. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. That scared me, because whatever was happening, everybody seemed to know except me. The pastor walked to the pulpit and adjusted the microphone. Service was about to start. I decided to leave. I couldn't sit there another second feeling like some criminal without understanding why. I turned toward the aisle. That's when I heard somebody behind me whisper loud enough for me to hear. "That's him." My chest started pounding hard. I stopped walking. Then the pastor cleared his throat into the microphone and said words that made the entire church go silent. "Before we begin today's service, Frank Mitchell, I need you to come up here beside me." The whole church got quiet after the pastor said my name. I froze halfway down the aisle with everybody staring at me. You could hear babies fussing in the nursery down the hall. That's how silent the sanctuary got. Pastor Raymond wasn't smiling. "Please come up here, Frank," he repeated. My daughter looked sick all of a sudden. Earl dropped his eyes to the floor. Something ugly was sitting in that room, and I could feel it closing around me. I walked slowly toward the pulpit. My legs felt weak. When I got up there, Pastor Raymond leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Did you bring your phone with you?" I frowned. "Yeah." "Keep it close." That made no sense. Then he faced the church again. "I know emotions are high this morning," he said carefully, "but before rumors spread any further, we're going to handle this the right way." Rumors. My stomach dropped. A woman near the front crossed her arms and shook her head at me. Another man whispered something to his wife while looking straight at me. I grabbed the edge of the pulpit because suddenly I felt dizzy. Pastor Raymond looked at me again. "Frank, Your family believes you stole money from the church building fund." The room exploded into whispers. I stared at him like I'd been shot. "What?" Melissa stood up fast. "Because somebody did steal it." Her voice cracked when she said it. "My daughter started crying right there in church. You were the only one with access after Wednesday night Bible study," she said. "The office camera stopped working right before the money disappeared." I looked at her completely stunned. "Melissa, I didn't steal anything." She shook her head hard. "Then why won't you answer anybody's calls?" "I've been in the hospital." Some people jumped when I raised my voice. I pulled folded papers from inside my coat pocket with shaking hands. "I had chest pains Thursday night. I was at Miami Valley Hospital till yesterday afternoon." Pastor Raymond took the papers from me and read them quietly. Melissa looked confused for half a second, but Earl stood up next. "Convenient timing," he muttered. I turned toward him slowly. "You think I robbed a church?" Earl shrugged coldly. "People get desperate." That sentence hit me harder than anything else, because Earl knew about my money problems. After Nancy died, I fell behind bad. Medical bills, house repairs. I borrowed money from him twice last year. He never let me forget it either. The whispers got louder. Then Tyler, my oldest grandson, stood up from the pew. "Mom," he said nervously, "maybe Grandpa didn't do it." Melissa snapped around. "Stay out of this." The boy sat back down looking scared. I looked around that church and realized something awful. My family had already decided I was guilty before I ever walked through those doors. Nobody asked me. Nobody gave me a chance. They just quietly buried me alive in front of everybody I'd known for 30 years. Then Pastor Raymond lifted his hand for silence again. "There's something else," he said carefully. He looked directly at Melissa. "The bank called me this morning." My daughter's face changed instantly. Pastor Raymond swallowed hard. "The missing money was deposited into a personal account yesterday evening." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then he said the name tied to the account. And my daughter nearly collapsed right there in the church aisle. You could hear people gasping all through the sanctuary. Melissa grabbed the edge of the pew beside her like she might fall over. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not possible." Pastor Raymond looked miserable standing there. "The deposit was made through the church mobile app Friday night," he said softly. "The account belongs to Melissa Carter." My daughter started shaking her head fast. "I swear to God, I didn't take that money." Earl stood up immediately. "Then somebody used her account." Pastor Raymond nodded slowly. "That's possible. But the damage was done. Now the whole church was staring at my daughter the same way they'd stared at me 10 minutes earlier. Funny how fast a room can turn on somebody. Melissa suddenly looked at me with panic in her eyes. "Dad, I didn't accuse you because I wanted to hurt you." I laughed once, bitter. "You let your own sons believe I was a thief." Tears rolled down her face. "I thought it was you." That sentence hollowed me out. Not because strangers believed it, because she did. Pastor Raymond asked everybody to sit down, but nobody wanted to sit anymore. Folks were whispering everywhere. Some people pulled out phones. Others just stared at Melissa like they didn't recognize her. Then Tyler spoke again from the pew. His voice was shaky. "Mom, did you take it?" Melissa looked horrified. "No." Her younger boy started crying. That church turned ugly real quick after that. Earl marched toward the pulpit, pointing fingers at Pastor Raymond. "You shouldn't have announced this publicly." Pastor Raymond looked exhausted. "Your family made it public the moment Frank walked through those doors and got treated like dirt. Nobody argued with that, because everybody saw it happen." Melissa kept crying quietly. I stood there beside the pulpit feeling numb. Part of me wanted to walk out and never come back. Another part wanted answers. Then Pastor Raymond looked at me carefully. "Frank, there's one more thing you need to hear." I frowned. "What now?" He hesitated too long. That scared me worse than before. "The bank records show somebody logged into Melissa's account from your house Thursday night." The room exploded again. Melissa looked up at me slowly. I felt the blood leave my face. "What?" Earl stepped back like I was dangerous all over again. "You see?" he snapped. I knew something wasn't right. "I didn't touch her account." Pastor Raymond raised both hands. "Frank, calm down." But I couldn't. My chest started hurting again. Not sharp like before, heavy, like bricks, pressing down inside me. "My daughter hasn't been inside my house in 3 weeks," I said. "I don't even know her passwords." Melissa wiped her face. "Then how did it happen?" I had no answer. That's what terrified me, because suddenly even I didn't know what to believe anymore. Then my grandson Tyler slowly stood up again. His face had gone pale. "Mom," he whispered, "I think I know something." Melissa turned toward him. "What are you talking about?" The boy looked at the floor. Then he said something that made every person in that church stare directly at Earl. "I saw Uncle Earl at Grandpa's house Thursday night." The church went dead silent after Tyler said that. Earl turned around so fast the choir chairs squeaked behind him. "That's a lie," he snapped. Tyler looked terrified now, but he kept talking. "I saw your truck outside Grandpa's house Thursday night when Mom dropped us off after basketball practice." Melissa stared at her uncle. "Earl, I was checking on Frank," Earl barked. "That's all." "At midnight?" I asked. He ignored me. Tyler swallowed hard. "You came out carrying Grandpa's old metal lockbox." Every eye in the church landed on Earl again. I felt my stomach twist, because I did have a lockbox. Old green thing Nancy and I kept paperwork in for years. Social security papers, tax records, bank stuff, passwords. Melissa covered her mouth slowly. "Oh my God." Earl's face changed right then. Not guilt exactly. Anger. Cornered anger. "You better watch what you're accusing me of, boy." Tyler shrank back into the pew. That did it for me. I stepped off the pulpit platform and pointed straight at my brother. "Don't you threaten him." Earl laughed coldly. "You think you're some victim now?" "What were you doing in my house?" "I had a key." My heart dropped. Nancy gave Earl a spare key years ago after my surgery. I forgot all about it. Melissa looked sick. "Uncle Earl, did you take the church money?" "No." "Then why use my account?" "I didn't." But nobody believed him anymore. You could feel it. Then Pastor Raymond quietly asked the question none of us wanted answered. "Earl, why were you at Frank's house after midnight?" My brother looked around the sanctuary, breathing hard. Finally he muttered, "Because I needed money." There it was. The truth cracked open, right in the middle of church. Earl sat down heavily in the front pew and rubbed both hands over his face. "I was going to put it back," he whispered. Melissa started crying again. People in the church looked stunned, some angry, some heartbroken. I just stood there staring at my own brother. We grew up together in a 2-bedroom house outside Columbus, shared clothes, shared beds when we were kids. I helped him after his divorce, helped him after his drinking got bad 20 years ago, and this man almost destroyed my life to save himself. Pastor Raymond sat beside him quietly. "How much trouble are you in, Earl?" My brother laughed weakly without looking up. "More than anybody knows." The church stayed silent while he talked. Gambling, that's what it was. Online betting, sports apps, casino trips down in Cincinnati. Started small after retirement, then bigger, then ugly. He borrowed from people, bad people. I thought if Frank took the blame. Earl stopped talking for a second. I thought Melissa would push harder because of his money problems. I couldn't even speak. Melissa looked at him with pure disgust now. You used me. Earl looked up finally. Tears sat in his eyes. I was scared. Then Tyler stood up again. His little voice shook through the sanctuary. You made me think Grandpa was bad. That hit harder than anything else said all morning. Earl started crying then. Real crying. Head down, shoulders shaking. But I felt nothing. Nothing except exhaustion. Pastor Raymond slowly stood and looked out over the church. I think we need prayer, he said quietly. But before he could start, 2 police officers walked through the back doors of the church. The 2 police officers stepped inside so quietly, at first, most people didn't notice them. But Earl did. I watched the color drain out of my brother's face. One officer walked straight down the aisle toward Pastor Raymond. The other kept his eyes on Earl the whole time. Nobody in that church moved, not even the children. The first officer spoke softly. We received a report regarding stolen church funds. Earl stood up too fast. I already said I was putting it back. Melissa covered her mouth. The officer looked at him carefully. Sir, we need you to come with us. Then Earl pointed at me, not angry, desperate. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. I stared at him without blinking. You let my grandsons think I was a thief. Earl's eyes filled again. I know. One of the officers stepped closer. Turn around, please, sir. The sound of handcuffs clicking inside that church nearly broke me. Somebody in the back pew started crying quietly. Earl looked over his shoulder at me while the officers led him toward the aisle. You remember when Dad used to lock us outside when he was drinking? He asked suddenly. The whole church froze again. I hadn't thought about that in years. We'd sleep in the truck together, he said. You always covered me with your coat. I swallowed hard, but said nothing. You were always the good one, Frank. Then they walked him out of the sanctuary. Just like that. My brother disappeared through the church doors in handcuffs while everybody watched. Nobody spoke for almost a full minute afterward. Then Melissa came toward me crying harder than before. Dad, I'm sorry. I looked at her tired face. My little girl, 17 when Nancy got sick, 22 when her husband ran off. I loved her more than life itself, but something inside me had changed that morning. You believed them, I said quietly. I know. You looked at me like I was garbage. She reached for my hand. Please don't do this. I pulled my hand away. That hurt her. I saw it instantly, but not as much as she hurt me. Tyler and his little brother slowly walked over next. Both boys looked scared to death. My youngest grandson wrapped his arms around my waist suddenly. I knew you didn't steal it, he whispered. That nearly took me apart right there. I held him close and shut my eyes. Then Pastor Raymond stepped beside me. You want me to drive you home? I nodded because honestly, I didn't trust my legs anymore. The church slowly emptied around us. Nobody wanted coffee and donuts after that. Folks walked out whispering and staring at the floor. Melissa kept standing near the pews crying alone while people avoided looking at her. Before I left, I turned back one last time. She looked so much like her mother standing there that my chest physically hurt. Dad, she whispered. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. So I just walked away. And the last thing I heard before the church doors closed behind me was my daughter crying my name. If this story hit you hard, let me know in the comments what you would have done in his place. And if you believe family, trust, and dignity still matter, subscribe for more real emotional stories like this one.